What scientific experiments would be interesting and informative, but too immoral and unethical to ever conduct?
Experience 1. I'd like to see how a completely gender-segregated society worked. Take a group of baby boys and girls, then keep them from all contact with the opposite gender. All of their caretakers would be same gender, the media would be heavily censored, etc. The goal is to give them no concept of biological sex, because there's nothing to compare yours to. I'd be interested to see how kids like that end up. Would they still create a concept similar to gender or gender roles? How about romantic relationships? And how differently would it affect the two groups? Experience 2. Raise children with robots. One of the most cost-effective ways to colonize other star systems could be to send frozen, fertilized human embryos and have replicating machines there to raise them. You could send one probe the size of a car with all the information and material needed to create an extraterrestrial colony. Experience 3. Geology, earthquakes. A theory states that if we were to lubricate fault lines, like that of the San Andreas Fault, then we should be able to control movement and reduce the chance of larger earthquakes happening. In reality, the experiment would be far too dangerous and unpredictable. Resistance and prediction are being experimented on more. Experience 4. Raising a child in complete silence, with no exposure to any sort of language, is known as the forbidden experiment. There are lots of theories about language acquisition that could be proved or disproved by it, but it's obviously completely unethical. The closest thing is when people find feral children who have been raised away from humans, or severely abused children whose parents have never spoken to them, like Genie. Edit, formatting. Edit. A few people have replied to this talking about some king who tried to do this, and all the kids died. I didn't know about that before now. I'm wary of how true it is because it happened such a long time ago and would be difficult to prove, and people in this thread have attributed it to a few different guys. Edit. A couple of people have asked what sort of questions would be answered by this experiment. The main one, I think, is the critical period hypothesis. People believe that if a child doesn't learn a language during a certain critical period, generally thought to be before puberty, they'll never be able to learn a language after that. I'm not an expert in this though. I studied it for my English language A-level a couple of years ago, and this is just what I remember. Experience 5. Testing the birth of civilization by throwing a whole bunch of people into a closed-off area with no tech and watching what happens over generations. And to make it more interesting, you act like gods with the power to control the experiment and watch as a religion forms. Experience 6. Fun history fact. Nearly everything we know about hypothermia comes from the Nazis and the Japanese. In fact, Nazi and Imperial Japanese medical research is invaluable, yet to read the reports is a nightmare. They are incredibly cold about smashing frozen limbs on living people. Experience 7. You start by feeding a large group of people identical diets. You analyze their poops to determine their exact chemical makeup. Then you remove various, specific parts of their intestines and analyze their poops again. The goal is to see which parts of the intestine absorb which nutrients. We've got a vague understanding right now, but I'd like an inch-by-inch analysis. Experience 8. Cloning a chimpanzee or human, harvesting the brain, slaving it to a life support system, lobotomizing it so that it's incapable of independent thought, and creating an interface so that it can be used as an organic computer. Experience 9. Anything about how different things impact outcomes during pregnancy. Is this drug safe to take during pregnancy or not? How about this herb? It's amazing how many chemicals, drugs, and herbs are considered questionable for pregnant moms. You look at almost any tea on the market and there'll be something in there that someone says may stimulate miscarriage or may harm developing baby. Soap, deodorant, makeup, food, there are potential risks everywhere. Now, a lot of people have a lot of these things in small amounts, but it's still not really ethical to take a large group of people and say this stuff might hurt or kill your baby. We're going to give loads of it to some of you and something harmless to the rest and see what happens. So pregnant moms are just in this vast spooky Mayab, this will hurt your baby. Mayab, not zone. Maybe when we get stronger AI, we'll be able to do detailed enough data collection across a wide enough population to obviate the need for specific studies. Here's hoping. Experience 10. Various social psychology experiments would be exceedingly difficult to get past an ethics board today. For example, Milgram's studies of social conformity revealed that given the right context and the right pressure, a high proportion of normal people will kill someone else if they're told to by an authority figure. Zimbardo's prison experiment and others like it show that if you give people an entirely arbitrary label and anonymity, they will quickly start to treat another arbitrarily inferior group extremely badly. I know that these don't exactly answer the question, but they're certainly informative and unethical. Having said that, I believe Zimbardo's prison experiment was replicated for reality TV fairly recently. Experience 11. Test countries. Like an experimental country where you implement fiscally liberal policies for 20 years and another where you implement fiscally conservative policies for 20 years. See which one in the end produces the stronger economy. There are going to be lots of variables that are going to be hard to control, but still, the results would be interesting. Experience 12. Charity. Groups are trying to gather data scientifically on various types of aid given and the effect of the aid. This is causing a large pushback by existing charities because it is seen as unethical to experiment with people's lives and well-being. The example I have heard about would be giving villagers cash money versus giving them a cow and training. I believe it was a recent This American Life episode. Experience 13. I've always wanted to create a reality TV show in which 10 people with degrees in things like theology and psychology compete to make completely original, successful cults or religions. After a year of competing, whoever ends up with the most money and/or followers wins, and it is revealed to all of the cult members that they have been royally played. Experience 14. Research into whether it's possible to crossbreed humans and different types of apes. The level of genetic variation between humans and chimpanzees is about the same as the level between donkeys and horses, which can interbreed, so it's at least theoretically possible. There was a scientist who did a little bit of work on this in the 1930s, but he got shut down pretty quickly. Experience 15. Human head transplants. Not just onto other humans. Is your body riddled with cancer? We'll stick you on a pig body. Is your pig body dying? No problem, here is another one. Keep doing this until your brain dies. Experience 16. So if you know about Dolly the sheep, then you may know that Dolly died at age 7. The donor gave the sample at age 7. I guess this is not unethical, but if we cloned animals that were at various dates to see if the clones die at those ages, that could be interesting. The unethical part can be skipping the animal studies and cloning humans. I'm pretty sure humans have already been cloned though, somewhere where they don't care. Experience 17. Everything regarding violence. Violence always has to be operationalized into some acceptable form, brain imaging techniques, pushing a buzzer, answering a questionnaire with a scale, etc. A better experiment would be to put a randomly selected into a lab, give them guns, and let them play hitman until a muck occurs. This has to be varied for a set of variables like age, gender, family background, cultural background, etc. Experience 18. Kill off all future children who have problems, such as disabilities and allergies, to see if humanity gets stronger. Put a newborn baby in a square white room void of anything. The room would be able to release a gas to render the child unconscious, which would allow the child to be fed without knowing it. The experiment would be to see if it would dream, and what the dreams would be about, and how it would occupy itself. Experience 19. Selective breeding humans in captivity. I bet we could get a wide range of breeds with different physical traits analogous to the differences between Chihuahuas, Great Danes, Bulldogs, etc. Even more interesting would be to breed for different behavioral characteristics. Dogs have been bred for obedience to authority, loyalty, aggression, or lack thereof, intelligence, or lack thereof, and compulsions to do things such as herd, pull, swim, fetch, and dig. What could we breed people to do? What would it say, and what would they say, about free will? Experience 20. Anything involving humans growing up in an adjusted environment outside of monitoring already occurring cases. This includes sensory deprivation, limited environment, limited diet, change in degree, quantity, or quality of human contact, and more. Experiments that test biologically advancing the attributes of an animal while the animal is still alive. Particularly tests that make animals more resistant. Think, is this bear fireproof yet? And you'll see why this is wrong. Experiments that adjust a person or animal's perception of time via but not limited to methods such as forced recurring events, forced changes in sleeping habits, forced adjustment of timing devices, forced changes in what appears to be the day/night cycle, think the end of the Truman Show. Tests on the limits of human bodily capabilities, such as just how much heat, cold, force, or electricity a body can take without suffering permanent, crippling, or fatal damage. Experiments designed to alter a person's perception of certain animals, objects, or interactions. Remember poor Oscar and the bunny? This includes things such as making individuals fearful or hateful toward certain things, or increasing their desire for them. Tests on the capability of one-to-one, or larger scale, human violence, using proximity and intense situations. Tests on the limits of human ingenuity under pressure using necessity. Think Saw movies.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.